Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're exploring a diplomatic dispute that's, well, it's really taken many by surprise. We're talking about a pretty bitter exchange that's erupted between two countries that are traditionally very close allies, Israel and Australia. It's a situation that has seen relations sink really to their lowest point in decades, which, if you follow their history, is quite a significant development. At the very heart of this whole conflict is Australia's decision to recognize a Palestinian state. Now, this move clearly angered Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has, well, really escalated his government's dispute with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, quite significantly.
Yeah, and what's really striking here isn't just the anger itself, but how public it became and how sharp Netanyahu's words were. I mean, this isn't your typical quiet diplomatic disagreement between allies, is it? He really didn't hold back. He claimed Albanese's legacy would be forever tarnished by the decision, and he even went as far as accusing Albanese of weakness towards Hamas. That kind of public attack, calling someone out like that, it's usually what you see between adversaries, not friends. It signals an unprecedented level of frustration maybe, and maybe a strategic choice to just bypass the usual private channels.
And it got even more intense, actually. Netanyahu made an incredibly striking claim, highly controversial, frankly. He said, and I'm quoting him directly here, "When the worst terrorist organization on earth, these savages who murdered women, raped them, beheaded men, burnt babies alive in front of their parents, took hundreds of hostages, when these people congratulate the Prime Minister of Australia, you know something is wrong." Now, this seemed to be a direct reference to a statement that was published in the Sydney Morning Herald. It had quoted Hamas co-founder Sheikh Hassan Youssef apparently praising Albanese.
Right, but here's the immediate counterpoint, the crucial bit, really. Almost immediately after that report came out, Hamas publicly denied that Youssef had issued any such statement. They clarified that he'd actually been in Israeli custody for nearly 2 years, with no way to communicate with the outside world. So this very quick public denial, especially with that clear alibi, it kind of transformed Netanyahu's powerful attack into, potentially, a significant diplomatic own goal. It just highlights how volatile information can be in these high-stakes situations, doesn't it? And how often things aren't verified.
Exactly. So what does all this mean for, that delicate dance of international relations, especially between allies? Our mission today is to unpack the specifics of this, well, extraordinary diplomatic back and forth. We want to look at the motivations behind these public accusations and explore the wider implications. We really want to help you navigate this complex and, frankly, surprising situation and give you the full picture. So we've seen this really rapid escalation. What drives a leader like Netanyahu to make such a severe public accusation against a traditional ally, knowing the diplomatic weight it carries? Is this mainly about international relations, or are there maybe domestic things at play too?
That's a really critical question. For Netanyahu, it's almost certainly not just about Australia recognizing a Palestinian state. It's very much tied, I think, to his domestic audience. There's a perceived need to project strength, an uncompromising stance on security, and the Palestinian conflict. From Israel's perspective, unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state, well, it's often seen as undermining security in future negotiations. So his strong reaction, it sends a signal to his base, doesn't it? That he's taking a firm line against anything seen as a concession or a challenge. This public rebuke of a friendly nation, it's really a strategic message aimed at multiple audiences, both at home and abroad.
Right. And what about Albanese's side of things? His decision to recognize a Palestinian state, that's a big shift for Australia. What might be driving that policy change? And how does he balance it with the inevitable backlash from a key ally like Israel?
Well, Albanese's move seems to reflect a growing feeling within the Australian Labor Party, and maybe among some international allies too. A feeling that a two-state solution needs more proactive support, perhaps even including early recognition, even if it's largely symbolic at this stage. It's a way of signaling commitment to a specific vision for peace, maybe putting some diplomatic pressure on. Politically, for Albanese, it aligns with a more progressive stance on human rights and international law. That resonates with parts of his electorate and certain international partners. Balancing that with Israel's strong reaction, though, means walking a very tricky diplomatic tightrope, trying to assert Australia's independent policy while, trying to de-escalate the public fight.
And we've seen this play out not just in words, but in actions too, haven't we? Australia canceled a visa for Simcha Rothman, who's a member of Israel's far-right coalition. And then Israel hit back, revoking visas for Australian diplomats heading to the Palestinian Authority. Can you sort of explain the diplomatic meaning behind these tit-for-tat actions? They might seem small, but they feel very pointed.
Oh, they are incredibly pointed, you're right. These visa cancellations, while they don't mean severing ties formally, they are a classic sort of lower-level diplomatic retaliation. They send a really clear message of displeasure, a breakdown of trust at certain operational levels. It
Mhm.
shows the dispute isn't just talk. It has actual tangible consequences. For instance, revoking visas for diplomats going to the Palestinian Authority. That directly hinders Australia's ability to engage on the ground with Palestinians, which is, well, a key part of their stated policy now. It's a way of exerting pressure, creating inconvenience, without doing something more drastic like recalling ambassadors. That would signal a much deeper break.
It's really fascinating how a single disputed quote can be weaponized like that in such a high-stakes environment. Given the Hamas denial about Sheikh Hassan Youssef, how does misinformation, or maybe just unverified claims, impact these kinds of international disputes?
Oh, it's hugely impactful, massively so.
Mhm.
In today's world of instant communication, a powerful accusation, even if it's later proven wrong, can just instantly shift the narrative and pour fuel on the fire.
Yeah.
Once a claim like Hamas congratulated you is made by a head of state, it just takes on a life of its own. Regardless of the facts, the denial often struggles to catch up or to fully undo that initial damage, especially if the claim taps into deeply held fears or beliefs. This whole episode really underscores the volatility of information in diplomacy, how quickly an unverified statement can become a flashpoint. It makes rational de-escalation much, much harder. It leaves a mark, even if it's officially walked back.
Okay, so as we wrap up today's deep dive, it's clear the public comments just escalated incredibly quickly. We saw Australia's Minister for Home Affairs, Tony Burke, hitting back quite sharply at the Israeli leader. He said strength wasn't measured by how many people you can blow up or how many children you can leave hungry. Pretty strong words. Though, interestingly, Prime Minister Albanese himself seemed to try and play down the spat, saying he didn't take it personally, perhaps trying to cool things off a bit. And we discussed those specific tit-for-tat actions, like the visa cancellations, which really show this wasn't just a war of words.
Absolutely. And if we connect the spat to the broader picture, it's actually a profound case study in diplomatic communication, isn't it? And the role third-party voices can play. We saw the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, which is the main body for Jewish Australians, express real dismay at these public tensions. They wrote to both prime ministers, urging them basically to use diplomacy, not public posturing. Their statement really hits home, I think. They said, and I quote, "The sum total of human wisdom would not have been diminished in the slightest if none of these public comments had been made." It just highlights that sometimes silence really is golden in diplomacy.
That is a powerful point. And they went even further, didn't they? Expressing concern that, and again I'm quoting, the Australian Jewish community will not be left to deal with the fallout of a spat between two leaders who are playing to their respective domestic audiences. That really brings it home how these high-level arguments, even between allies, have real, tangible impacts on communities, on individuals, right down on the ground. So as you reflect on this surprising turn in the Israel-Australia relationship, maybe consider this. How do these public diplomatic fights, even between countries that are usually close allies, impact not just the high-level international relations, but also the cohesion, the well-being of communities and individuals? What does this whole deep dive into the Israel-Australia dispute suggest about the future of international dialogue in our, increasingly interconnected world? Something to think about.